Solutions. Solutions. We got all kinds of problems. We got solutions, but are the solutions really solutions? You know, in my situation, I have a lot of time to sit and think. Even when I'm doing my chores out here, the nature of the chores I'm doing, there's often a lot of time just to sit and watch something. Watching something boil, a pot boil or whatever. Watching a fire struggling to get started. Maybe poking at it a little bit now and again to get it started or to help it get started or whatever. So, I have a lot of time to think right now. And there's a lot to think about, too. And one thing I have noticed, and I don't know, I'm sure but people aren't stupid. I'm sure that others have noticed it too. There's a lot of people in this world far smarter than I am. So I'm probably talking about something y'all already know and are aware of. But I am pretty good with words, so maybe I can articulate it in a way that not everybody can. And if I can do that, then I can be of some service. And so that's why I'm making this video. Now, just recently, well, I'll tell you, it's funny. I'll tell you the background. My mother is very much a believer in the system. She trusts the government. She trusts the medical system. She believes in the police. She believes in the courts. She believes that if you have any problems with any of these systems, then 9 times out of 10, the problem is you and not the system. She'll say, well, there are some bad apples, but for the most part, the police are good people. And so on. And, she's in her 70s, and people of that generation were brought up to believe that. And, that's kind of normal for older people to feel that way and to think that way. And, of course, they lived as adults in a system that actually was pretty good to them. They lived under a system where you could work at the grocery store and own a house. You can't do that anymore, but in the 60s and 70s and even into the 80s, you could. So here's the thing anyway. She called me up one day not too long ago, and she told me that the government is going to give everybody a check for $500 to help them with this increased cost of living that we're having to deal with now. And wasn't that good of them? Okay, of course, again, we have some interesting conversations, me and my mom, because we do think quite a bit different. In the end, we generally end up agreeing to disagree. But for me, see, I look at that and I say, okay, the reason the cost of living has gone up is because of inflation. And just, even though I'm sure most of you know this, I'm going to say it in case there's somebody out there who doesn't. And again, because I'm trying to articulate the problem, I feel like I need to put it into words, even if you do understand it. And I'm sure most of you do, probably all of you do. But how we get inflation, this is important. How we get inflation is we print more money than we have wealth in the country. And so we get an inflated currency. We have more dollar bills floating around than we have wealth to back them up, so we have an inflated dollar. Now, when you have an inflated dollar and you go and you buy goods, let's say you go to the grocery store and you want to buy a box of cereal. Well, when the dollar isn't inflated, it has some value to it, so it'll cost you fewer dollars to buy those goods. So that box of cereal that would normally cost you $3 or $4 in the grocery store, when the dollar isn't badly inflated, when the dollar is inflated, that same box of cereal will cost you $8 or $10. And that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing this $8, $9, $10 boxes of cereal, $5 loaves of bread. This is what we're seeing. I've seen beef. I've seen steaks in the grocery store selling for $50, $60, $70 for a steak. It's ridiculous. Anyway, that's because we have an inflated dollar. That's why that's happening. We got the inflated dollars by printing too much money. So what's the government's solution? We're going to help you by printing more money. We're going to have to print more money to honor all these checks we're sending out, all these $500 checks. What's going to happen there is they're going to print more money to honor the checks. We're going to get deeper into this inflationary cycle. We're going to have a more inflated dollar, and that box of cereal is going to go from $8 to $12 to $14 because we did that. Well, because our government did it, and we cashed the checks. So now and they're not stupid. They're doing this on purpose. They're purposely trying to crash the economy. When I was telling my mother the story, I used the example of a bus driver. And I said, now, imagine a bus driver who's been driving a bus for 40 years. That guy, he knows his bus. He knows its strengths and he knows its weaknesses. He knows what his bus can do, and he knows what his bus can't do. He knows how to safely operate his bus. He might have a great safety record. He might have been driving all that time without any major problems, without any accidents or major incidents. This is a man who knows his business. Well, the economy is run by people like that. And I'm not talking about the figureheads that we see behind the microphones at the press conferences. Those people are idiots. Justin Trudeau, idiot. Joe Biden, idiot. They're both idiots. They're all idiots. It doesn't matter who it is. I'm not picking on liberals here or whatever. There are a lot of idiots who are conservatives too. They're idiots. But they're figureheads, so it doesn't matter. They're just here to give us an illusion of choice. The people who actually run the economy are the people behind the scenes who we don't see. We don't know who they are, really. We don't see them. We don't know them. We don't know where they live or what their dog's name is or if they're married or what kind of a car they drive or anything. We don't know anything about these people. But what we do know is that these are not fools. These people aren't stupid. And they're doing what they're doing for a reason. And again, we get into the Build Back Better thing. In order to build something, you have to first take out what's already there. If I buy a piece of land and I want to build a house on it, which of course today is nearly impossible to do, really, but let's just go out on a limb here and say that I'm able to do that. But let's say there's already a structure on the land, and it's where I want to build my house. Well, I can't build my house on top of it. I have to eliminate the structure that's already there. In order to build back better, what I see is better, I got to remove what I see as an inferior thing. What I see as something that I don't want there. So I can put my good house in that space instead of that thing, whatever it is that I don't want, that I don't have any desire to allow to stay there. Well, that's what's happening now. And see, they're telling us, well, we're going to help you out with all this hardship you're facing due to the inflation that we have caused by printing too much money, by printing more money. So what's going to happen is you go out, you spend that $500, and it'll seem like a godsend. You'll be so happy to get it, and you'll be grateful to the government, like my mom is. And then, in 6 months' time, that money will be all gone. But that box of cereal you're paying $8 for now, that'll now be a $14 box of cereal. And maybe the government will give you another check. But if they do that, that's going to jack the price up of that same box of cereal to $18 or $20 or something. So, I mean, in the end, you're not going to win. It's no different than somebody, say some guy who goes out to bars all the time and gets into fist fights and gets beat up. And every weekend he gets beat up. And so his solution to that is, well, I usually only go to a bar on Saturday night and I get beat up every time I go to the bar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start going to the bar on Friday nights too, and that'll solve my problem. Well, no, it won't. That'll just mean that you get beat up 2 nights in a row every week instead of 1 night. You got to do things differently. You can't do more of the same thing you've done that's caused your problem and expect your problem to go away. All that's going to happen is your problem is going to multiply exponentially. And that's what we're seeing now. That's why this thing is spinning out of control. And getting back to my example of the bus driver, if we think of the bus as the economy, and we think of the driver as the people who actually are directing it, and not the figureheads that we see and that we tend to think are directing it, and we think of the passengers as us, the people affected by it. Imagine now that that bus driver who knows his business starts handling his bus improperly. And you're a passenger and you see this and you know he's going to crash this bus. Well, I mean, okay, and then he does crash it. Well, he didn't do it because he's stupid. He didn't do it because he's incompetent. He's already proven that he's a perfectly competent bus driver. He did it for one of two reasons. He either did it because he's lost his mind, or he did it because he intended to. And see, here's the thing. If the driver crashes the bus, we, the passengers who are along for the ride, we get injured. And that's what we're seeing now. And these injuries are taking the forms of job losses, of the losses of homes, of the losses of people's life savings being lost, all kinds of stuff. The loss of security, the loss of an economic future for young people, the loss of hope for young people, and then all the stuff that comes with that too, then people fall into all kinds of bad things because they don't have any hope. So they say, well, what difference does it make? I might as well just do whatever, because what difference does it make? And that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing a lot of hopelessness among our young people. We're seeing a lot of people very frightened, very unsure, not knowing what's going to happen to them. I'm frightened and I'm unsure of what's going to happen to me. I mean, I'm not ashamed to admit I'm scared. And I try to pray about it, and I do pray about it. It's stuff, and I try to have faith in God. Sometimes my faith wavers. In fact, oftentimes my faith wavers, but I still try to have it. I have no faith in the system at all at this point. But, and I do think the system's intentionally doing this to us. I don't think it's out of stupidity, and I don't think it's by chance. I don't think it's coincidence. I think it's being done on purpose, just like I think if the guy crashes the bus, he's doing it on purpose. He's already proven he can drive the bus. Why is he suddenly doing weird things with his bus that he knows are beyond the bus's capability, unless he intends to crash the bus? And see, that's what we're seeing now. Anyway, all these checks and programs and things that the government is putting out, they seem like blessings because we're desperate, but they're not. We're drowning and they're throwing us an anvil. That's what they're doing. That's not good. These people are not helping us. Not at all. They're hurting us. They're taking us deeper down a path that we don't need to be going down. They're taking us down a hole that we're going to have a bad time climbing out of, even as it is, and they're digging us deeper into it. And for the most part, we're cooperating. Now, I don't know what the answer is. I'm not going to say don't take the checks if they're offering them, because I know people are desperate. And I can't hardly blame people for taking them. But I'm just saying that in the end, it's not going to profit us. It isn't a gift. It isn't a godsend. It isn't a life preserver. It's an anvil. And whatever temporary hope it gives us, or whatever temporary comfort it gives us, we're going to pay for that later on. But that doesn't mean there's no value in temporary hope and temporary comfort either. Especially when a situation is hopeless, and perhaps this situation is. I don't know. But maybe it is. Maybe we're already too far gone. But I do know that what we're doing is we're creating more of the same problem. Everything they're doing right now is just creating more of what's been going on, of the same problem. The solutions that they're coming up with to solve the problem are creating more of the same. And like I say, no different than the guy who gets beat up every Saturday night